So about 3 years ago, in May of 2020, I saw a video from a guy called Austin Evans, who I had no idea who he was. The name of the video was The Only Gaming PC You Can Build, and I was intrigued by that. So I watched it, and after watching it, I was very inspired and really wanted to build that exact PC to the exact spec of his. But up until now, I haven't been able to do that. But today is where we build that exact gaming PC. Now, I've already built PCs in the past, but my dream was to build this exact model, so I got as close as I can to that. So let's get into it. For the motherboard, we've got the B550 GTQ by Biostar. Now, this isn't actually the specific motherboard that Austin was using. He was using a B450MA motherboard from Asus, I think, but this is a pretty worthy comparison. About the same design, only thing is it's a B550 chipset, so it's got USB-C and a few other quirks and things, but it's pretty similar overall. Now, the CPU we're using is the legendary Ryzen 3 3100. Now, it might only have 4 cores and 8 threads, but it's still not a bad value chip. Just in the current market, it's not that great when compared to like the i3 12100. And sadly, the 3100 and the 100 naming scheme is a little, let's just say, inconsistent, because the new Ryzen 3 4100 is a terrible value CPU. It performs basically on par with the 3100, but costs a lot more than these do. And in comparison to the 12100, the performance isn't nearly close to each other. Now, I've already used the CPU cooler in the past, so we're going to be using this cheap and cheerful Chinese thermal paste, the HY810. It should do the trick and it should be just fine. Let's see what this thermal paste is like. That doesn't look that bad. I might have gone a little overboard. That is alright. The more the merrier. Hopefully that works. Next, we'll slap on the CPU cooler. Now, for this, I'm just using the stock AMD Ryzen cooler. That's what I used in the video. It really does the job, especially for the Ryzen 3 3100. You're not going to be cranking out games at any max settings or anything, and realistically, it's only a 65 watt chip, so you'll be a-okay. Okay, for RAM, we've got 2 8GB sticks of G.Skill Ripjaws 3600 memory. Not sure if it's going to be able to run at 3600, but we can try. If not, 3200 should be absolutely fine. There's nothing too special about this RAM. It's pretty normal, stock standard DDR4, and it does the trick. Now, for the SSD, we've got a bog standard 500 gig WD Blue. It should do the trick and it should serve us well. Not too much to be said there. I've got to undo this thing first though. Take off the film. Nice little heat spreader. There you go. One thing I do want to comment on is that SSD prices have dropped by so much since that video was uploaded. I think he paid like 80 bucks for a PCIe Gen 3 SSD for 500 gigs. I paid 34 Australian dollars for this. So that equates to about $23 American. Something just insane and crazy. All right, and believe it or not, that's half the computer done. So now we have to break out the case. Now, for the case, there's a little bit of a story to tell in that, well, let's just say this case has been through a fair bit. Now, there was this competition a while ago that was like a team group competition about like building your dream setup, and I decided that it would be a good idea to spray paint my PC case white in some areas. And let's just say that you got to take time when you're doing that, and if you don't, you're gonna just ruin your case, and that's exactly what I did. I ruined my case. Because the thing about spray painting and painting in general is that you have to, you know, be patient with it. You got to take your time. You got to let the paint sit there for a while. Don't put too much on at one time. And let's just say I'm not the best at being a patient person, which is fine, but just don't become a painter then. And the big problem was that I didn't let it dry and I applied too much at one time, and the paint job is pretty crap overall in general. These things happen. But I do like this case overall. There's just a few nitpicky things that I don't like about it. One is the front ventilation airflow. There's an MB311L, not the MB320L that I'm using right now, and that mitigates it because it does have that mesh front panel. But that is one of the only main gripes about this system. But other than that, it's a pretty good case. And most importantly, it's got RGB in the fans, so you can't complain there. As you can see, some of the paint's chipped away on the side panel, mainly because I was scraping metal on metal when I'm putting the panel on. But yeah, I really shouldn't have painted the inside of the panel, because now there's a little bit of like white paint stuff everywhere in the case. But overall, it's not too bad and you can live with it. You just have to wipe it down every so often and not open it up too much. And that leads us to our final component of the build, which is, of course, the GPU. Now this is specifically the Asus GeForce GTX 1660 Super. There's nothing too special about it. It's got one fan and overall should be just fine for light gaming at 1080p. When Austin built his, he used a 1650 Super, so this is a little bit better of a graphics card, but not by too much. The funny thing is though, when I was watching the build originally, I used to think that you had to get the specific model of graphics card. So whether it be from Asus or Gigabyte, but I thought the cards performed very differently, when in actuality they perform within 1% of each other to the point where you can't even notice. I always wanted a 1650 Super in my first build, but unfortunately this was like right in the middle of the GPU shortage. So what I ended up paying was 370 Australian dollars for a 1650. That was a absolute scam and ripoff. I think at the time Austin paid like $165 for a 1650 Super, which is a lot better of a deal, but now they're discontinued and you can't find them anywhere. But the 1660 Super is the close relative and I quite like the graphics card overall. It performs on par with a 3050. So I'm just gonna short it and hopefully that works. If I can find out which pins they are. There we go. Everything spins. RGB's not working. Oh, there we go. And I think we have a post. Okay, so we finally got the PC set up and might I say it actually looks quite nice. Everything is running quite nicely. I really actually quite like that blue on the motherboard accent. It's really quite a nice touch. And the system's running really quietly. So yeah, let's jump into some games and benchmark it. Okay, so in the GTA 5 benchmark, running at 1080p high settings, you can see that we're getting a stunning 120 FPS, which is really quite good considering that this CPU is only a quad-core CPU, but in an open world game like this, it's still managing to output really good FPS. That 1660 Super is also really pushing this system to be able to produce over 100 FPS consistently in a game like GTA. Okay, so in Fortnite running at 1080p Pro settings, you can see that we're averaging around 164 FPS, which is really quite good. It means you can use a high refresh rate monitor and get that additional benefit. Now Fortnite's a pretty poorly optimized game, so these frame drops and stutters are happening on every single graphics card out there. There's really nothing you can do about it. It's just a bit of an issue with the game, but overall, yeah, you can definitely play Fortnite on this thing. And it's quite an enjoyable experience. And in Siege, in the in-game benchmark, you can see we're getting around 200 FPS, which is really quite good. Again, you can use that high refresh rate monitor and gain the benefit of that high refresh rate monitor. It's really quite good. Our GPU temp is a little high. I think that is because the bloke did disassemble the cooler, but it's definitely not something to be too concerned about. I would say that it's probably not thermal throttling at the moment. And because this is a single fan card, I would expect that the temps would be a little higher than usual. Okay, and after running Cinebench R24, you can see that for our CPU multi-score, we got 323 points, which isn't bad. It's only slightly slower than a new 12th gen mobile processor. Considering the Ryzen 3 3100 is a lot older than that, I would say it's not bad. In addition to that, that has 14 cores and we only have 4. So definitely we have some better single core performance there. In addition to that, that actually has 14 cores, whereas we only have 4 cores and 8 threads. So yeah, that's definitely going to give us a little bit of a disadvantage. Now in terms of GPU ranking, we rank better than Apple M1 and the Radeon Pro 5500M. It's pretty new, this software, and generally it's used for professional use, so they're not going to evaluate any like gaming GPUs really. There's the 2070 Super sitting here, but yeah, it's just a good comparison tool for Blender rendering. So overall, I'm really happy with my dream PC, and it couldn't have turned out any better. The 1660 Super and the Ryzen 3 3100 are still a really good combo in 2023, and you can definitely use them for the years to come. I hope you enjoyed this video, because I know I did, because it's a bit nostalgic looking on my past ideals of gaming PCs. And yeah, if you did enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe, and as always, I'm TechBiz, and I'm out.